Welcome to yoga. My name's Kirsten, and our practice today will be our yin practice. And it'll focus on grounding down and working on the meridians of our liver and gallbladder as it's still spring. And so let's take a couple of moments to settle into our breath. And I've got a couple of different props here. I have some blankets. You can use blankets or towels from your house. I have some props, some blocks. You can use blocks, or if you don't have blocks, you can use water bottles. Those 32-ounce Nalgene bottles work really well. I also have some bolsters here. You can use, again, some blankets as well as cushions from your couch because they have a little more stability. So gather your props and let's take a couple of moments to settle in. So find a comfortable seat, elevating your hips up on something. And you can start in Siddhasana, one ankle in front of the other, or Sukhasana, think crisscross applesauce, whatever feels best for your hips and your knees today. You're also more than welcome to start on your back. If you're feeling a little tired, you might want to add a bend to your knees, or you can bring something underneath the knees to elevate the knees. Let's find a comfortable seat or relaxing on the back. Let's take a deep, full breath in through our nose. And as we exhale through our nose, let's close our eyes and start to bring our awareness inwards. Relax your shoulders, soften the neck. If you're seated, shift your torso back in space to bring your shoulders more in line with your hips. Allow your chest, your heart to open. And if you're resting on your back, let the four corners of the body release to the earth. Let the back of the pelvis, the back of the shoulders be heavy. And wherever you are, start to bring your awareness inwards as you connect with the rise of your inhale and the gentle fall of your exhale. Nice full deep breaths in, deep breaths out. Taking our time to transition ourselves to this moment, to release the day. Let's invite our breath to become a little deeper, a little longer. Breathing into the low belly, the low back. Inviting your exhales to become as long as your inhales. And as your mind wanders to memories or your to-do list, gently guide it back, connecting with your inhale, your exhale. Bring your awareness to that point where your body connects with the mat, with the ground. Exhale and invite your body to sink a little deeper into the earth, into the ground. Letting the ground beneath you support you. Relax your toes, your fingers. Invite the tongue to soften and relax in the mouth. Releasing all the muscles of the face. And with our next breath in, let's join our hands together in front of our hearts, taking a moment to honor whatever brought us to our practice today, what went right, so we could be here. And then with your next breath in, set your intention, your sankalpa, your energetic aim for today's practice. The light within me greets the light within you. Namaste. Let's gently open our eyes, keeping our gaze soft. Let's roll our shoulders back a few times. Let's inhale, reach up to the sky, palms together, and exhale, come to our hearts. And let's inhale and exhale. Inhaling, reaching arms up. And exhaling, coming back to our heart, back to our intention for today's practice. Let's bring the opposite legs in front. Settle back into that seat. Inhale, reach back up to the sky. And exhale, back to your heart center. Inhaling, breathing in through the nose. And exhaling, back to the heart, back to your intention. Inhale. And exhale. And let's settle into our first yin pose, which is going to be our reclining butterfly pose. And so I'm going to take my blankets. I think this one it's folded a little differently. And I'm going to take the long side. I'm going to roll it up. And you can do this with your beach towel or with your blanket. And we're going to come into our reclining butterfly pose. So this is going to go underneath our knees. You can keep your blocks handy for a little extra padding. We're going to rest on our back, joining the soles of our feet together. I'm going to let the knees drop open. Arms can be next to the sides of the body. They can rest on the body. They can reach out from the shoulders or anywhere in that space behind your head. You can gently close your eyes and find a comfortable position. I'm going to start our timer. We're going to be here for about 5 minutes. And so with our yin practice, we want to come in to the form of the pose, finding our soft edge. So we could go a little bit deeper into the pose, but we'll instead stay here, that soft edge. And we find the form of the pose. You can modify it. You can use props in a way that support your body today. And then as we come into the pose, we disengage our muscles. So we want to relax our muscles so the pose can go deeper into our connective tissues. And then we stay here for a while, surrendering to the pose. And with our yin practice, we're working to increase the flexibility, the pliability, the fluidity, the flexibility of our muscles, but more importantly, the pliability and fluidity of our connective tissues, our tendons, our ligaments, our bones, our joints. So as we come into the pose and hold the pose, we still get a lovely stretch in the muscles, increasing our flexibility there. But we're systematically creating more space in our body, more space in our skeleton as we pull it apart. And as we increase the range of motion, the pliability, the fluidity of our connective tissues. So unlike other forms of yoga where we push ourselves deeper and deeper into the poses, we want to stay here on that soft edge, surrendering to the stillness, allowing the benefits of the pose to go deeper into the connective tissues. And as your mind wanders, gently guide it back to the breath, connecting with your inhale, your exhale. If you find that you need a little more support to those inner thighs, you can fold your blanket over, or you can have a blanket under each knee to kind of give your outer thighs a little more support. And so, in addition to positively affecting our connective tissues with our yin practice, we also nourish and stimulate the meridians that flow through our body. Meridians are energy channels, energy lines, transport our chi, our energy, our prana, our life force. Depending on what source you look at, we have either 72,000 or over 300,000. So a lot. There are a lot of energetic pathways that flow throughout the body. In our yin practice, we focus on 6 of the main meridians as well as some of our lesser upper body meridians. And in this pose, we're stimulating the meridians of our kidneys and liver as they flow through the inner thighs, the gallbladder meridians as they flow through our outer hips, our outer thighs. If we've got our arms out from our shoulders or reaching into that space above our head as we open our chest a little bit more, as well as gently pull on the tissues of our upper body, we're stimulating the meridians of our heart, lungs, small and large intestines. We have a little over a minute left in this pose. So if you find that you've gone a little too deep into the pose, gently back out of it, wiggle a little bit, and settle back in. When I ring the bell, we'll come out of the pose just as we came into it. So moving with your breath to come out of your pose. And then in between our long-held yin poses, we'll bring some movement into our body. What that movement looks like depends on how you'd like to move. I do invite you to be gentle with your body as you start to move. Perhaps you want to move through some cat or cow, or maybe you want to do some seated twists, or maybe you just want to sit there breathing deeply. Maybe that's enough movement for the body today. And then as you're finishing up those last movements, we'll move into our next pose, which is going to be our saddle pose. So first option is to just sit back on the heels. From here, you can extend one leg forward and then slide your folded up blanket. Square would be nice. Or if you have that block or that cushion from your couch, slide it underneath the hips. From here, you can lean forward, relax the toes. You can sit up tall. You can gently walk the hands back. You can even prop your elbows up on that couch cushion. So you can do any of those same options with both feet back. It might be that you need to have a little more padding underneath the hips. And then another option I'll give today is to slide your knees up to a wall. Let your feet rest on the wall. And then you can prop your elbows up, or you can rest your forehead to the back of the hands. And so just a different option to get into the tops of the thighs, but that second option is a little gentler on our knees. So wherever you are today, go ahead and settle in. And find your breath. Find a comfortable place for your hands to rest. Remembering palms facing up helps to open to the energy surrounding us. Palms facing down helps to ground our energy. You can close your eyes. You can drop your chin towards your chest. Again, it's whatever feels best in your body as we settle into this pose. And in our saddle pose, we want to start to feel a gentle stretch along the tops of the thighs. You might also start to feel it in the outer hips. If it's a little too much on the knees or the ankles, you can also bring your folded up blanket or towel underneath your shins, underneath your knees, but letting your feet and toes hang off. Remember, it's always an option to come into that half saddle where we extend one leg forward. Those sensations you're starting to feel in the tops of the thighs, that's stimulating the meridians of our stomach and our spleen. If you're leaning forward, back is rounded, that's helping to stimulate the urinary bladder meridian as it flows down the back of the body. If you've added that bit of a back bend here, maybe you're on your fingertips or you've propped your elbows up on your bolster or your couch cushion, or you're just leaning back. That's getting into the urinary bladder meridians, again, as they flow down the back of the body, but also the kidney meridians as they flow through the lower back and along the sides of the spine. As we start to open our chest, gently pulling on the tissues of our upper body, our chest, we're stimulating the meridians of our heart, lungs, small and large intestines. This also physically opens the front of our body, which helps to open our heart and our heart center. It's a great pose to counteract all the sitting we do each day, which often causes us to fold forward or to hunch forward. Gently come back to your breath. If you notice any areas of tightness or tension, let your breath flow into those areas, creating space, creating release as you exhale. And let's gently release from the pose, coming out of it just as you came into it. Inviting some breath, some movement into the body. I like to come forward onto tabletop and extend a leg back, lift a foot, open up the hip to the side, maybe bend the knee a little bit. But again, move in any way that feels good to your body. You can come into some deep breaths, some seated twists. And then for our next two poses, we're going to do the same pose. We're going to do the same side with both the poses before we move to that second one. So I'm going to take my blanket and bring this underneath my sit bones to the bottom of my pelvis. And our first pose is going to be our deer pose. So I've got one heel reaching towards my tailbone, and then my other foot is extended back. I like to have my toes to the floor. That's my preference. Perhaps you'd like to open your toes to the side, whatever feels best for your ankles. Elevating the hips makes it easier on the knees. And then we'll go ahead and settle into our deer pose. If you come into the pose and both the hips are grounded, you can start to walk your feet a little farther away from your hips. You can also lean forward over that front knee. Maybe you want to prop yourself up with your blocks or with your blanket. You can also just start to lean forward. And we'll be here for about 2 minutes as we settle into our deer pose. Find your breath. And so spring is that time where we start to see the seeds come out of the ground. We start to see the little plants coming out of the ground. It's also that time when those intentions we set at either the start of the year or at the winter solstice are starting to come to fruition after we've nurtured them through the rest of winter. Our days start to become longer. It's also that time to start transitioning into summer, into those longer days, shorter nights, warmer days. And so as we take these last few breaths, are there ways in which you might nurture your intentions, nurture those seeds that you planted? What are those seeds? What are those intentions that you set? We're going to release from the pose. And then whatever leg is back, we're going to bring forward. And we're going to take our other leg, the one that was forward, and bring that knee over the other knee. And so leg is extended and relaxed. So we're not flexing our foot, we're relaxing the toes. You can stay in this half shoelace pose, or you can wrap that heel towards the outside of the hip. I've lifted my blanket to make space here. And my knees are pretty much stacked in that shoelace pose. And again, we'll lean forward. Or if you'd like, you can take your bolster or your couch cushion and lean away from the top leg, making sure that both hips remain grounded. And so settle in. If you have that bottom leg extended, you have the added benefit of getting that stretch along the back of the leg. And again, hinging forward will put more stress on the connective tissues. It'll bring more of a stretch to the body, but can also be a lot of pressure on the knees. Remember, it is always an option, remembering which knee is on top, to come to your back and find the pose from your back, either by gently reaching for your ankles or your calves, gently hugging the knee toward the body. You can also come into that eye of the needle pose if that's better for your knees, with either your foot on the floor, reaching for that hamstring, or reaching for the shin. So lots of options here. Again, finding the one that works for you in this moment. Realizing that our practice changes moment to moment, day to day, year to year. And again, as those sensations start to arise, just notice what you notice, using your breath to create space, to create release. And you should feel some intensity in the pose. That's one of the ways in which yin differs from restorative. Oftentimes the poses look very similar, but with our yin practice, we come into the pose, we're placing stress on our skeleton, on our connective tissues. So we do want to feel some sensations. We do want to feel that our body's in the pose. Whereas with our restorative practice, we want to be completely supported by our props. The point of that restorative practice is to restore. And so you don't want to have effort. You want to be completely supported by your props. Let's take a couple more breaths. in our shoelace pose on this side before we transition to that second side. One more deep breath in. Deep breath out. And let's gently release, making a note of which side you've already done. I like to bring my blocks to that side to know that it's already been done. And let's take some time to move before we transition into that second side. It might be nice to do some windshield wipers here. So separate your feet a little bit wider than your mat. Just moving the knees side to side. You can do this seated. You can also do this reclining, so resting on your back. And how far you drop your knees or how fast you move your knees is up to you and whatever feels best. Let's transition to that second side for our deer pose. So again, elevating our hips up on our blanket. We'll take the leg that was forward, now we'll take it back. We'll bring the leg that was back or on the bottom and bring it forward. And we'll settle in, remembering that if the hips are grounded, you can gently walk the feet a little farther away from the hips from the tailbone. You can lean forward over that front knee. You can also just lean forward, perhaps propping yourself up with your props, just going to that point where you start to feel the stretch. And so in our deer pose, we're getting into the meridians of our kidney and liver as they flow through the inner thighs, the inner groin. We're getting into the stomach and spleen meridian through the top thigh, especially that top thigh of that back leg. As we get into our hips, our outer thighs, we're stimulating the gallbladder meridian. Hinging forward helps to stimulate the urinary bladder meridian as it flows down the back of the body. And then if you've added a little bit of a twist here as we fold over that front leg, that gets into the gallbladder meridian as it flows through the sides of the body. We have about a minute left in our deer pose. So checking back in with your own body, noticing the sensations. And in our yin practice, we never want to feel pains. We don't want to feel those sharp sensations, especially in our joints, as we come into the pose. Again, we want to feel some sensations. We want to feel some intensity. We want to feel that our body is in a pose. But we want to avoid any positions that cause pain to our body. A few more breaths here before we transition to our shoelace pose. And releasing and coming into our shoelace pose on the opposite side. So that leg that was pointing backward is going to come straight forward. We're going to drape the knee that was forward on top. Relax the bottom foot with the option of folding that other leg back. Let's go ahead and settle in here into our shoelace pose, our half shoelace pose, folding forward. Or leaning away from that top leg. And if you're leaning away, do prop up your elbow. Just makes it a little bit easier. Allow your chest to open. That further stimulates the gallbladder meridian as it flows through the side of the body. And as we come into our shoelace pose, we're stimulating the kidney and liver meridians as they flow through the inner thighs, the inner groin. If that bottom leg is extended, that helps to stimulate the urinary bladder meridian as it flows down the back of the leg. As we fold forward, we're stimulating our urinary bladder meridian through those outer hips, outer thighs. That's further stimulating the gallbladder meridian, which if you've been spending a lot of time seated, you're probably very aware of those hips, that low back. And just settle in, find that edge, and then find your surrender. tuning your awareness inwards, coming to the breath, letting the ground beneath you support you. And so our liver and gallbladder meridians form a pair, just like our kidney and urinary bladder do, and then our stomach and spleen meridians do. With our liver and gallbladder meridians, they're connected to the element of wood, so that ability to be stable, to be rooted, but able to move, to change, to adapt, to flow. And healthy chi in our gallbladder and liver meridians helps to ensure a balanced flow, a harmonious flow of chi throughout our whole body. And a little over a minute on the second side. So as your mind has wandered away to thoughts, to your to-do list, gently come back to your breath. And let's release from our pose, finding some breath, finding some movement. And again, what that movement looks like depends on where your body is tonight. Sometimes laying there, sitting there, breathing deeply is enough movement. Maybe you want to come into your downward facing dog, or you want to rest in child's pose, or you want to move through cat-cow. Again, it's whatever feels best in your body. And so for our next pose, let's come into our wide-kneed child's pose. So we're going to bring big toes together. Great place to bring your blanket underneath the knees and shins for a little extra padding. And then we're just going to fold forward. You can also slide something in between your hips and your heels. First option is to rest the forehead to the back of the hands. You can also rest your forehead to your block or to your blanket. And then from here, you can extend those arms forward. Palms can be open to the sky. And we'll just settle in. If your knees need a little bit of a break, you can just do knees to chest. Maybe opening the knees a little bit wider than the hips here. And just gently drawing the knees towards the side. So a couple of different options here. Find the one that works for you. And how far apart you want your knees to be depends on how that feels for your hips. So knees closer together brings more of a stretch through the whole back. As we separate our knees, that further stretches, gets into the hips, especially the groin, outer hips, inner thighs. And so it's whatever feels best in your body here. You don't have to come all the way to the floor. You can prop yourself up on your elbows. Again, lots of options here. Find the one that works for you. If you can, let your body sink a little deeper into the earth. Let your hips be heavy. Relax the shoulders. Create space between your shoulders and your ears. And with each exhale, sink a little deeper into the ground. Releasing, relaxing, letting go. Taking this opportunity to pause, to bring your awareness inwards. So notice what you notice in this moment. In this moment. In this moment. There's energy at this time to support communication, networking, curiosity, creativity. It's a time to check back into your intentions, to figure out how you might align with those intentions, as well as what intentions you need to release, you need to let go of. Relax your jaw. Create a little space between your tongue and the roof of the mouth. We have about a minute here in our child's pose. If you'd like to take a few breaths and walk your hands over to one side, maybe 3 full breaths. And then walk your hands over to the other side to further stimulate the gallbladder meridians throughout our hips, the sides of the body. And with our wide-knee child's pose, we're again stimulating those meridians of our kidney and liver as they flow through the inner thighs, the inner groins, those gallbladder meridians throughout our hips, throughout our thighs. We're also stimulating the stomach and spleen meridians with that pressure we place on our inner knees. And as we fold forward and round our back, that's stimulating the urinary bladder meridian as it flows down the back of the body. Coming out of the pose just as you came into it. Inviting some breath, some gentle movement into your body. Noticing what you notice. And so as you're moving, I'm going to start to cue into our next pose, which will be our fish pose. And so a couple of options here depending on what props you have. So you can take your blanket. And I have 2 rather thick yoga blankets here. I'm going to stack them in lieu of having a bolster. And so with this, it feels lovely. We're going to rest back. You can take an extra pillow underneath the head. And then we're going to extend our legs forward. You can take another blanket, roll it up underneath the knees, maybe take the pillow from your couch. You can also rest back on the pillow, or the cushion rather, from your couch. It gives a little more support. If you do happen to have a bolster, I will kindly encourage you to bring the bolster underneath your back, and you'll have it hit you right at your sacrum, those 5 fused vertebrae just above your tailbone. And then you'll take a rolled up blanket. I happen to have a bolster here, and that will go underneath the knees. Tonight we're going to take it into a nice, more restorative fish pose. A couple of things. If this is a little too high for your back, you can try it with 1 blanket. You can also take that towel, roll it up, And you can bring this underneath the low back, the mid back, or even underneath your armpits. And I might invite you to open your arms up, maybe out into a T or a wide V, or even into those cactus arms, to just further open up the chest and get into the back body here, as well as into those meridians of the heart, lungs, small and large intestines. Let's flow through the upper body. And so in this gentle passive back bend, we're stimulating the kidney meridians as they flow along the sides of the spine, along through our lower back, our sacrolumbar region. We've got some pressure to the back of the knees. And another option here, if you'd like to make it a little more yin, a little less restorative, is to come into butterfly with your feet, with your legs. Again, getting into those meridians of the kidney and liver through the inner thighs, gallbladder meridians through the outer hips, outer thighs. You're still getting into those kidney meridians with this back bend, as well as the urinary bladder meridians as they flow along the back of the body. And so as we rest, or as we pause rather, in our fish pose with our chest open, our heart open, our throat open, let's take a moment to tap into the communication around us, our communication with ourselves, our communication with those around us, communication that happens around us. So between us, in between us, around us. Are there ways in which you might communicate a little more clearly? Are there ways in which you might be a little more receptive? So focus a little more on listening and a little less on talking. Are there ways in which you might shift how you approach communication? Can you lead forward with an open heart, with kind, compassionate communication? And with that self-talk, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And with all that we currently have going on, there's a lot, and it can be a lot. So are there ways in which you can practice some loving self-talk? Practice a little more self-love, a little more self-care. Give yourself a little more compassion. Give yourself a little more leeway at this time. Less judgment. So go ahead and release those thoughts. Come back to your breath, focusing on that open chest, that open heart, relaxing your shoulders. Breathing deeply into your low belly, into your low back. So gently press into your elbows, maybe roll off to the side or come out of that pose just as you came into it. Finding some breath, some movement before we transition into our final poses, which will all be reclining or on our back. And from here, we're going to come into, keep your props handy, we're going to come in to our eye of the needle pose. So come onto the back, both feet to the floor, take your ankle to your opposite thigh. You can stay here with your foot on the floor. You can prop that foot up on something. You can also reach for your hamstring or your shin. You can have that foot a little more lifted. If you do have any ankle or knee issues, I'll kindly encourage you to add a little flex to the feet. It's not necessary if you don't. It just helps. If you don't have a knee or ankle issues, it just helps to protect your knee and ankle joints. Make sure your shoulders are relaxed. You're grounding through the four corners of your torso. So hips, both shoulders. And that you're letting the ground beneath you support you. You can also do this pose from a wall. So rear end to the wall, legs extended. You'll bend one foot. Sorry, take the ankle to the opposite thigh first. Bend one foot, and then leaving those hips, you can just slide your heel down. So a couple of just different options for your eye of the needle pose. Thread the needle pose. Relax the shoulders. Allow your chest to open. And with this external rotation through that thigh that's closest to our body, we're stimulating our liver meridians as well as our kidney meridians. We're getting in to the gallbladder meridians through that outer hip, that outer thigh, those glutes. You're probably really starting to feel that stretch through the glute, through the outer hip. The pressure our ankle places on the top thigh of that other leg helps to stimulate our stomach and spleen meridians. And then depending on what you've got going on with your chest, with your shoulders, maybe you're just resting here, open heart, as you stimulate those meridians of the heart, lungs, small, large intestines. Maybe you've chosen that wall option and you're further stimulating those meridians by placing some pressure on the tissues of the upper arms, the chest, the upper back. And as your mind wanders, gently come back to the breath. Allowing yourself to surrender to the stillness of the pose. Remembering if the sensations become too intense, you can release from the pose, wiggle a little bit, and then find your way back in. And we're going to flow right into our twist from here. So whatever leg is on front, you're just going to cross your leg over. So like you're crossing your legs. Then the knee that was on top, the one closest to your body, you're going to drop it to the opposite leg. So my right leg is on top. I'm going to drop both knees over to the left. And then I'm going to grab my block because it's handy. It might be a little nicer with that couch cushion or with the blanket. I'm going to support the knee as I come into my twist. And so you can gaze up, you can gaze to the same side as the knees, you can gaze away from the knee to further deepen the twist. You can bring that arm a little bit higher than the shoulder to get into those meridians of the heart, lungs, small and large intestines. And as we settle into our twist, let your hips, the backs of your shoulders be heavy. And just release. Just help to balance the right and left sides of the body, to balance our right and left energy. Anytime we cross the midline of our body, it's an opportunity to reset, to start anew. Our twist is stimulating the gallbladder meridian through that top hip, outer thigh, as well as we start to twist through our rib cage for the gallbladder meridian. It also stimulates our stomach, like our stomach organ, as well as the processes of digestion, detoxification, and elimination. And let's release, and we'll transition to our second side. So coming into our eye of the needle pose, so opposite ankle to the thigh. You can leave your foot on the floor, you can reach for your hamstring or your shin. You can also do this pose from the wall, bringing your arms anywhere that feels comfortable for your shoulders, for your body. And just settling into this second side, relaxing your shoulders, allowing the back of the pelvis, the shoulders to be heavy, finding your breath. Start to bring your awareness inward, focusing on the sensations of your body. Feeling your breath as it flows in, as it flows out. Feeling your inhale flow into your exhale flow into your inhale. When your mind wanders off, the thoughts, past experiences, feelings, gently come back to your breath, connecting with your inhale, your exhale, and offering yourself compassion, not judgment. That's what the mind does. It wanders off. If it helps, you can visualize your thoughts like clouds in the sky or leaves in a stream, or just watching them float all by. Noting that they're there, perhaps with a whisper of a mental note of thinking, thinking, thinking. And coming back to your breath. Whatever we give our attention to grows. So if you get lost in those thoughts, they have a tendency to grow. You go further down the rabbit hole. And that moment you notice that you're thinking and not focusing on your breath or not feeling your breath. That's a moment of mindfulness, a reminder to come back into the present moment. And those moments of mindfulness are just kind reminders throughout the day to be more present, to exist more in the here, more in the now. One more deep breath in. Deep breath out. We're going to slide that top knee, cross our leg over, and then drop both knees to that opposite side. So now my left knee is on top, and I've dropped both knees to the right side. And I'll invite you to prop up your knee with your block or with a blanket or your bolster, something to give yourself a little more support. It helps to support the hip, the low back. I'm going to dim the lights a little bit. And then Kitty, our over, has come to join us. This is normally where he likes to sit, especially when the fireplace is on. So settle into that twist. Find a comfortable place for your hands to rest. And just find your breath. A few more breaths here. Taking this opportunity to reset, to start anew as we cross the midline of our body. And then let's release. We'll take any final poses, any last movements. Before we transition into Shavasana, final relaxation. So transition to your back. I'm going to show you a lovely little prop setup that you can do with books if you don't have blocks, and with, again, your couch cushion. So I'm going to take my block. I'm going to lean my bolster up against it, and then I've rolled up a blanket that I've stuck on the other end of my bolster. I'm going to take the backs of my thighs to that block. My knees are supported with the bolster, and my ankles or my heels are supported with the blanket. And I'm just going to rest back, allowing my feet to open wider than my hips. Arms are next to the sides, palms open to the sky. You can also just bring your rolled up blanket underneath your knees, or you can rest and lay flat in Shavasana. Wherever you are, allow your toes to rotate out. Relax your fingers. Take a breath in. And as you exhale, close your eyes and start to sink a little deeper into the ground beneath you. Relax your toes, your fingers. Relax your jaw, the muscles of your face. Relax your shoulders and your neck. And as you exhale, sink even deeper into the ground beneath you. Releasing, relaxing, letting go. Exhale, sinking deeper. Releasing any remaining restlessness, tightness, or tension. And you're welcome to pause it here. Take a few more moments in Shavasana. And start to bring our awareness back into the room, back into our bodies, back into our breath. As we shift our awareness to the soles of our feet, wiggle our toes and then our fingers, making other small and subtle movements with the body. And drawing our knees in, rolling off of whatever props are underneath our body. Let's roll to our favorite side, drawing our legs in, taking a moment here to pause and connect with how you feel in your body. Reflecting back on your intention from the start of class. And then offering gratitude, a thank you to your body for so willingly doing the work, as well as to whatever or whomever supported you so you could practice in this moment. And then when you are ready, use your top arm to press up into your simple sitting pose, bringing your hands together in front of your heart in Anjali Mudra, or resting one hand and then the other over the heart, thumbs touch, fingers open wide, in essence of the heart mudra or Swabhava mudra. And as you connect back to your intention for today's practice, I'll invite you to open your heart, open your chest. Tapping into the energy, supporting communication, connections, creativity. Are there ways in which you might lead forward with a kinder, more compassionate, open heart, focusing on kind, caring communication and listening? And from the bottom of my heart, I thank you for practicing today.